An account of the greatest English poets by Joseph Addison. Read for LibriVox.org by Algy, Perth, Western Australia. Since, dearest Harry, you will needs request a short account of all the Muse possessed, that, down from Chaucer's day to Dryden's times, have spent their noble rage in British rhymes. Without more preface, wrote in formal length, to speak the undertaker's want of strength, I'll try to make their several beauties known, and show their verses' worth, though not my own. Long had our dull forefathers slept supine, nor felt the raptures of the tuneful nine, till Chaucer first, the merry bard, arose, and many a story told in rhyme and prose. But age has rusted what the poet writ, worn out his language, and obscured his wit. In vain he jests in his unpolished strain, and tries to make his readers laugh in vain. Old Spenser next, warmed with poetic rage, in antic tales amused a barbarous age, an age that yet uncultivate and rude, where'er the poet's fancy led, pursued through pathless fields and unfrequented floods, to dens of dragons and enchanted woods. But now the mystic tale, that pleased of yore, can charm an understanding age no more. The long-spun allegories fulsome grow, while the dull moral lies too plain below. We view, well pleased, at distance all the sights of arms and palfreys, battles, fields and fights, and damsels in distress, and courteous knights. But when we look too near, the shades decay, and all the pleasing landskip fades away. Great Cowley then a mighty genius wrote, o'errun with wit and lavish of his thought. His turns too closely on the reader press, he more had pleased us, had he pleased us less. One glittering thought no sooner strikes our eyes with silent wonder, but new wonders rise, as in the Milky Way a shining white o'erflows the heavens with one continued light, that not a single star can show his rays, whilst jointly all promote the common blaze. Pardon, great poet, that I dare to name the unnumbered beauties of thy verse with blame. Thy fault is only wit in its excess, but wit like thine in any shape will please. What muse but thine could equal hints inspire, and fit the deep-mouthed Pindar to thy lyre? Pindar, whom others in a laboured strain and forced expression imitate in vain. Well pleased in thee he soars with new delight, and plays in more unbounded verse, and takes a nobler flight. Blest man, whose spotless life and charming lays employ the tuneful prelate in thy praise. Blest man, who now shall be for ever known in Sprat's successful labours and thy own. But Milton next, with high and mighty stalks, unfettered in majestic numbers walks. No vulgar hero can his muse engage, nor earth's wide scene confine his hallowed rage. See, see, he upward springs, and towering high, spurns the dull province of mortality, shakes heaven's eternal throne with dire alarms, and sets the almighty Thunderer in arms. Whate'er his pen describes, I more then see, whilst every verse, arrayed in majesty, bold and sublime, my whole attention draws, and seems above the critic's nicer laws. How are you struck with terror and delight, when angel with archangel copes in fight? When great Messiah's outspread banner shines, how does the chariot rattle in his lines? What sounds of brazen wheels, what thunder, scare and stun the reader with the din of war? With fear my spirits and my blood retire, to see the seraph sunk in clouds of fire. But when, with eager steps, from hence I rise, and view the first gay scenes of Paradise, what tongue, what words of rapture can express a vision so profuse of pleasantness? Oh, had the poet ne'er profaned his pen, to varnish o'er the guilt of faithless men, his other works might have deserved applause. But now the language can't support the cause, while the clean current, though serene and bright, betrays a bottom odious to the sight. But now, my Muse, a softer strain rehearse, turn every line with art, and smooth thy verse. The courtly Waller next commands thy lays, Muse, tune thy verse with art to Waller's praise. While tender ears and lovely dames inspire soft melting thoughts, and propagate desire, so long shall Waller's strains our passion move, and Sacchariss's beauties kindle love. Thy verse, harmonious bard, and flattering song, can make the vanquished great, the coward strong. Thy verse can show even Cromwell's innocence, and compliment the storms that bore him hence. Oh, had thy Muse not come an age too soon, but had seen great Nassau on the British throne! How had his triumphs glittered in thy page, and warmed thee to a more exalted rage! What scenes of death and horror had we viewed, and how had Boyne's wide current reeked in blood! Or if Maria's charms thou wouldst rehearse in smoother numbers and a softer verse, thy pen had well described her graceful air, and Gloriana would have seemed more fair. Nor must Roscommon pass neglected by, that makes even rules a noble poetry, rules whose deep sense and heavenly numbers show the best of critics and of poets too. Nor Denham must we e'er forget thy strains, while Cooper's Hill commands the neighbouring plains. But see, where artful Dryden next appears, grown old in rhyme, but charming even in years. Great Dryden next, whose tuneful muse affords the sweetest numbers and the fittest words. Whether in comic sounds or tragic airs she forms her voice, she moves our smiles or tears. If satire or heroic strains she writes, her hero pleases, and her satire bites. From her no harsh, unartful numbers fall, she wears all dresses, and she charms in all. How might we fear our English poetry, that long has flourished, should decay with thee? Did not the Muse's other hope appear, harmonious Congreve, and forbid our fear? Congreve, whose fancy's unexhausted store has given already much, and promised more. Congreve shall still preserve thy fame alive, and Dryden's Muse shall in his friend survive. I'm tired with rhyming, and would fain give o'er, but justice still demands one labour more. The noble Montague remains unnamed, for wit, for humour, and for judgment famed. To Dorset he directs his artful muse, in numbers such as Dorset's self might use. How negligently graceful he unreins his verse, and writes in loose familiar strains. How Nassau's godlike acts adorn his lines, and all the hero in full glory shines. We see his army set in just array, and Boyne's dyed waves run purple to the sea. Nor Simois choked with men, and arms, and blood, nor rapid Xanthus' celebrated flood, shall longer be the poet's highest themes, though gods and heroes fought, promiscuous in their streams. But now, to Nassau's secret counsels raised, he aids the hero whom before he praised. I've done at length, and now, dear friend, receive the last poor present that my Muse can give. I leave the arts of poetry and verse to them that practise them with more success. Of greater truths I'll now prepare to tell, and so at once, dear friend and Muse, farewell. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Barter by Sarah Teasdale. Read for LibriVox.org by Jeri Erickson. Life has loveliness to sell, all beautiful and splendid things, blue waves whitened on a cliff, soaring fire that sways and sings, and children's faces looking up, holding wonder like a cup. Life has loveliness to sell, music like a curve of gold, scent of pine trees in the rain, eyes that love you, arms that hold, and for your spirit's still delight, holy thoughts that star the night. Spend all you have for loveliness. Buy it, and never count the cost. For one white singing hour of peace, count many a year of strife well lost. And for a breath of ecstasy, give all you have been, or could be. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Calf Path by Sam Walter Foss. Read for LibriVox.org by Brian Middleton. One day, through the primeval wood, a calf walked home, as good calves should, but made a trail all bent askew, a crooked trail, as all calves do. Since then 200 years have fled, and I infer the calf is dead, but still he left behind his trail, and thereby hangs my mortal tale. The trail was taken up next day by a lone dog that passed that way, and then a wise bellwether sheep pursued the trail o'er vale and steep, and drew the flock behind him too, as all good bellwethers always do. And from that day, o'er hill and glade, through those old woods a path was made, and many men wound in and out, and dodged and turned and bent about, and uttered words of righteous wrath, because 'twas such a crooked path. But still they followed, do not laugh, the first migration of that calf, and through this winding wood way stalked, because he wobbled when he walked. This forest path became a lane that bent and turned again. This crooked lane became a road, where many a poor horse with his load toiled on beneath the burning sun, and traveled some 3 miles in one. And thus a century and a half they trod the footsteps of that calf. The years passed on in swiftness fleet, the road became a village street, and this, before men were aware, a city's crowded thoroughfare. And soon the central street was this of a renowned metropolis, and men 2 centuries and a half trod in the footsteps of that calf. Each day 100,000 rout followed the zigzag calf about, and o'er this crooked journey went the traffic of a continent. 100,000 men were led by one calf, near 3 centuries dead. They followed still this crooked way, and lost 100 years a day. For thus such reverence is lent to well-established precedent. A moral lesson this might teach, were I ordained and called to preach. For men are prone to go it blind along the calf paths of the mind, and work away from sun to do what other men have done. They follow in the beaten track, and out and in and forth and back, and still their devious course pursue, to keep the path that others do. And how the wise old wood gods laugh, who saw the first primeval calf. Ah, many things this tale might teach, but I am not ordained to preach. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Complaint of the Fair Helm-maker Grown Old by Francois Villon. Read by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Methought I heard the fair complain, the fair that erst was Helm-maker, and wish herself a girl again. After this fashion did I hear: Alack, old age, felon and drear, why hast so early laid me low? What hinders but I stay me here, and so at one stroke end my woe? Thou hast undone the mighty thrall in which my beauty held for me, clerks, merchants, churchmen, one and all. For never man my face might see, but would have given his all for fee, without a thought of his abuse. So I should yield him at his gree what churls for nothing now refuse. I did to many me deny. therein I showed but little guile, for love of one right false and sly, whom without stint I loved erewhile. Whomever else I might bewile, I loved him well, sorry or glad. But he to me was harsh and vile, and loved me but for what I had. Ill has he used me, and howe'er unkind, I loved him none the less. Even had he made me faggots bear, one kiss from him, or one caress, and I forgot my every stress. The rogue, 'twas ever thus the same with him. It brought me scant liesse, and what is left me? Sin and shame. Now is he dead this 30 year, and I'm grown old and worn and grey. When I recall the days that were, and think of what I am today, and when me naked I survey, and see my body shrunk to naught, withered and shriveled, well away, for grief I am well nigh distraught. Where is that clear and crystal brow, those eyebrows arched and golden hair? And those bright eyes, where are they now, wherewith the wisest ravished were? The little nose, so straight and fair, the tiny tender perfect ear, where is the dimpled chin, and where the pouting lips so red and clear? The shoulders gent and straight and small, round arms and white hands delicate, the little pointed breasts withal, the haunches plump and high and straight, right fit for amorous debate. Wide hips and dainty quelquechose betwixt broad firm thighs situate within its little guarding close. Brows wrinkled sore and tresses grey, the brows all fallen and dim the eyne that wont to charm men's hearts away. The nose that was so straight and fine, now bent and swerved from beauty's line. Chin peaked, ears furred and hanging down, faded the face and quenched its shine, and lips mere bags of loose skin grown. Such is the end of human grace, the arms grown short and hands all thrawn, the shoulders bowed out of their place, the breasts all shriveled up and gone, the haunches like the paps withdrawn, the thighs no longer like to thighs, withered and mottled all like brawn, and fie on that between them lies. And so the litany goes round, lamenting the good time gone by. Among us, crouched upon the ground, poor silly hags, too huddled by a scanty fire of hemp stalks dry, kindled in haste, and soon gone out. We that once held our heads so high, so all take turn and turn about. This poem is in the public domain.
Dulce Et Decorum Est by Wilfred Owen. Read for LibriVox.org by Ernst, Pattynama. Bent double, like old beggars under sacks, knock-kneed, coughing like hags, we cursed through sludge, till on the haunting flares we turned our backs, and towards our distant rest began to trudge. Men marched asleep. Many had lost their boots, but limped on, bloodshod. All went lame, all blind, drunk with fatigue, deaf even to the hoots of disappointed shells that dropped behind. Gas! Gas! Quick, boys! an ecstasy of fumbling, fitting the clumsy helmets just in time. But someone still was yelling out and stumbling and floundering like a man in fire or lime. Dim, through the misty panes and thick green light as under a green sea, I saw him drowning. In all my dreams, before my helpless sight, he plunges at me, guttering, choking, drowning. If, in some smothering dreams, you too could pace behind the wagon that we flung him in, and watch the white eyes writhing in his face, his hanging face, like a devil's sick of sin. If you could hear, at every jolt, the blood come gargling from the froth-corrupted lungs, obscene as cancer, bitter as the cud of vile, incurable sores on innocent tongues. My friend, you would not tell with such high zest to children ardent for some desperate glory the old lie, Dulce et Decorum Est, pro patria mori. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Free Will by Alice Meynell. A recording for LibriVox.org by Rhys Harrison. Dear are some hidden things my soul has sealed in silence, past delights, hope unconfessed, desires with hampered wings, remembered in the nights. But my best treasures are ignoble, undelightful, abject, cold. Yet oh, profounder hoards oracular, no reliquaries hold. There lie my trespasses, abjured but not disowned, I'll not accuse determinism, nor, as the Master says, charge even the poor deuce. Under my hand they lie, my very own, my proved iniquities, and though the glory of my life go by, I hold and garner these. How else, how otherwhere, how otherwise shall I discern and grope? For lowliness, how hate, how love, how dare, how weep, how hope. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
He Couldn't Say No by M.E.B. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Gordon MacKay. He couldn't say no. It was sad and it was strange. He just was full of knowledge. His studies swept the whole broad range of high school and of college. He read in Greek and Latin too. Loud Sanskrit he could utter. But one small thing he couldn't do, that comes as pat to me and you as eating bread and butter, he couldn't say no. He couldn't say no. I'm sorry to say it was really so. He'd diddle and dawdle and stutter, but when it came to the point, he could never say no. Geometry he knew by rote, like any Harvard proctor. He'd sing a fugue out, note by note, knew physics like a doctor. He spoke in German and in French, knew each botanic table, but one small word that you'll agree comes pat enough to you and me, to speak he was not able, for he couldn't say no. He couldn't say no. 'Tis dreadful, of course, but 'twas really so. He'd diddle and dawdle and stutter, but when it came to the point he could never say no. And he could fence and swim and float and use the gloves with ease too. Could play baseball and row a boat and hang on a trapeze too. His temper was beyond rebuke, and nothing made him lose it. His strength was something quite superb, but what's the use of having nerve if one can never use it? He couldn't say no. He couldn't say no. If one asked him to come, if one asked him to go, he'd diddle and dawdle and stutter, but when it came to the point he could never say no. When he was but a little lad, in life's small ways progressing, he fell into this habit bad of always acquiescing, 'Twas such an amiable trait to friend as well as stranger, that half unconsciously at last the custom held him hard and fast before he knew the danger, and he couldn't say no. He couldn't say no. To his prospects, you see, 'twas a terrible blow. He'd diddle and dawdle and stutter, but oh, when it came to the point, he could never say no. And so, for all his weary days, the best of chances failed him. He lived in strange and troublous ways, and never knew what ailed him. He'd go to skate when ice was thin. He'd join in deeds unlawful. He'd lend his name to worthless notes. He'd speculate in stocks and oats. It was positively awful, for he couldn't say no. He couldn't say no. He would veer like a weathercock, turning so slow. He'd diddle and dawdle and stutter, but oh, when it came to the point, he could never say no. Then, boys and girls who hear my song, pray heed its theme alarming. Be good, be wise, be kind, be strong. These traits are always charming, but all your learning, all your skill, with well-trained brain and muscle, might just as well be left alone if you can't cultivate backbone to help you in life's tussle. And learn to say no. Yes, learn to say no, or you'll fall from the heights to the rapids below. You may waver and falter and tremble, but oh, when your conscience requires it, be sure and shout no. End of He Couldn't Say No, recorded by Gordon MacKay, Holmrook, Cumbria, 27th December 2013.
He Leadeth Me by Henry H. Barry. Read for LibriVox.org by Carol Box, in Surrey, England. In pastures green. Not always. Sometimes he who knoweth best, in kindness leadeth me in weary ways, where heavy shadows be, out of the sunshine warm and soft and bright, out of the sunshine into darkest night. I oft would faint with sorrow and affright, only for this, I know he holds my hand, so whether in the green or desert land, I trust, although I may not understand. And by still waters? No, not always so. Oft-times the heavy tempests round me blow, and o'er my soul the waves and billows go. But when the storm beats loudest, and I cry aloud for help, the Master standeth by, and whispers to my soul, Lo, it is I. Above the tempest wild I hear him say, Beyond this darkness lies the perfect day. In every path of thine I lead the way. So, whether on the hilltops high and fair I dwell, or in the sunless valleys where the shadows are, what matter? He is there. And more than this, where'er the pathway lead, he gives me no helpless, broken reed, but his own hand, sufficient for my need. So where he leads me I can safely go, and in the blessed hereafter I shall know why, in his wisdom, he hath led me so. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
I Serve a Mistress by Anthony Munday. This is a recording for LibriVox by Rhys Harrison. I serve a mistress whiter than snow, straighter than cedar, brighter than the glass, finer in trip and swifter than the roe, more pleasant than the field of flowering grass, more gladsome to my withering joys that fade than winter's sun or summer's cooling shade. Sweeter than swelling grape of ripest wine, softer than feathers of the fairest swan, smoother than jet, more stately than the pine, fresher than poplar, smaller than my span, clearer than beauty's fiery pointed beam, or icy crust of crystal's frozen stream. Yet she is curster than the bear by kind, and harder-hearted than the aged oak, more glib than oil, more fickle than the wind, stiffer than steel, no sooner bent but broke. Lo, thus my service is a lasting sore, yet will I serve, although I die therefore. End of poem. This recording is in public domain.
The Lake Isle of Innisfree by William Butler Yeats. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. Recorded by Michele Fry, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The Lake Isle of Innisfree. I will arise and go now, and go to Innisfree, and a small cabin build there, of clay and wattles made. 9 bean rows will I have there, a hive for the honey bee, and live alone in the bee-loud glade. And I shall have some peace there, for peace comes dropping slow, dropping from the vales of the morning to where the cricket sings. There midnight's all a glimmer, and noon a purple glow, and evening full of the linnet's wings. I will arise and go now, for always, night and day, I hear lake water lapping with low sounds by the shore, while I stand on the roadway or on the pavement's gray. I hear it in the deep heart's core. End of poem.
Luna by Gerald Miller. A recording for LibriVox by Rhys Harrison. Too soon the sunset comes, too soon opens the night its curious eyes, greedy to watch the maiden moon unloose her silver draperies, and walk upon the star-flowered fields, her cloudy garments one by one. To waiting winds she slowly yields, and now her last disrobing done, flashes live limbs across the sky, and flaunts the cold and slender grace of unconcerned virginity. O now before her smiling grace, 1,000 rivers, lakes, and seas hold up their mirrors to her gaze. 1,000 moonlets there she sees float on 1,000 starry ways. Beneath her footfall, light and free, the peeping star follows shake and fall. Cold as her watery mirrors, she drinks admiration from them all. In them her nakedness she views, in love of her own limbs displayed, and through the wandering night pursues a strange unreasonable parade. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Men Improve with the Years by William Butler Yeats. Read for LibriVox.org by Peter Tucker. I am worn out with dreams, a weather-worn marble triton among the streams, and all day long I look upon this lady's beauty as though I had found in a book a pictured beauty, pleased to have filled the eyes or the discerning ears, delighted to be but wise, for men improve with the years, and yet, is this my dream or the truth? Oh, would that we had met when I had my burning youth! But I grow old among dreams, a weather-worn marble triton among the streams. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
No Worst There Is None by Gerald Manley Hopkins. Read for LibriVox.org by Winston Tharp. No worst, there is none, pitched past pitch of grief, more pangs will, schooled at 4 pangs, wilder ring. Comforter, where is your comforting? Mary Mother of us, where is your relief? My cries heave, herds long, huddle in a main, a chief woe, world sorrow, on an age-old anvil wince and sing, then lull, then leave off. Fury had shrieked, no lingering, let me be fell, force, I must be brief. Oh, the mind has mountains, cliffs of fall, frightful, sheer, no man fathomed. Hold them cheap may who ne'er hung there, nor does long our small durance deal with that steep or deep. Here, creep, wretch, under a comfort serves in a whirlwind. All life death does end, and each day dies with sleep. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
A Nocturnall upon St. Lucy's Day, being the shortest day, by John Donne, read for LibriVox.org by Patrick Wallace, London, 21st December 2013. 'Tis the year's midnight, and it is the day's, Lucies, who scarce 7 hours herself unmasks. The sun is spent, and now his flasks send forth light squibs, no constant rays. The world's whole sap is sunk. The general balm thy droptic earth hath drunk, whither, as to the bed's feet, life is shrunk, dead and interred. Yet all these seem to laugh compared with me, who am their epitaph. Study me then, you who shall lovers be at the next world, that is, at the next spring. For I am every dead thing, in whom love wrought new alchemy, for his art did express a quintessence even from nothingness, from dull privations and lean emptiness. He ruined me, and I am rebegot of absence, darkness, death, things which are not. All others from all things draw all that's good, life, soul, form, spirit, whence they being have. I, by love's limbeck, am the grave of all that's nothing. Oft a flood have we two wept, and so drowned the whole world us two. Oft did we grow to be two chaoses, when we did show care to aught else. And often absences withdrew our souls, and made us carcasses. But I am, by her death, which word wrongs her, of the first nothing the elixir grown. Were I a man, that I were one, I needs must know. I should prefer, if I were any beast, some ends, some means. Yea, plants, yea, stones detest and love. All some properties invest. If I an ordinary nothing were, as shadow, a light and body must be here. But I am none, nor will my sun renew. You lovers, for whose sake the lesser sun at this time to the goat is run to fetch new lust and give it you, enjoy your summer all. Since she enjoys her long night's festival, let me prepare towards her, and let me call this hour her vigil and her eve, since this both the year's and the day's deep midnight is. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The One Certainty by Christina Georgina Rossetti. Read for LibriVox.org by Carol Box. In Surrey, England. Vanity of vanities, the preacher saith, all things are vanity. The eye and ear cannot be filled with what they see and hear. Like early dew, or like the sudden breath of wind, or like the grass that withereth, is man, tossed to and fro by hope and fear, so little joy hath he, so little cheer, till all things end in the long dust of death. To-day is still the same as yesterday, to-morrow also even as one of them, and there is nothing new under the sun, until the ancient race of time be run. The old thorns shall grow out of the old stem, and morning shall be cold and twilight grey. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Psalm 23. The Lord my pasture shall prepare. By Joseph Addison. Read for LibriVox.org by Algy, Perth, Western Australia. The Lord my pasture shall prepare, and feed me with a shepherd's care. His presence shall my wants supply, and guard me with a watchful eye. My noonday walks he shall attend, and all my midnight hours defend. When in the sultry glebe I faint, or on the thirsty mountain pant, to fertile vales and dewy meads my weary, wandering steps he leads, where peaceful rivers, soft and slow, amid the verdant landscape flow. Though in a bare and rugged way, through devious lonely wilds I stray, thy bounty shall my pains beguile. The barren wilderness shall smile, with sudden greens and herbage crowned, and streams shall murmur all around. Though in the paths of death I tread, with gloomy horrors overspread, my steadfast heart shall fear no ill, for thou, O Lord, art with me still. Thy friendly crook shall give me aid, and guide me through the dreadful shade. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Saltbush Bill on the Patriarchs by A.B. Banjo Patterson. Read for LibriVox.org by Son of the Exiles. Saltbush Bill on the Patriarchs. Come all you little rouseabouts and climb upon my knee. Today, you see, is Christmas Day, and so it's up to me to give you some instruction like a kind of Christmas tale. So name your yarn and off she goes. What? Jonah and the whale. Well, whales is sheep I've never been to see, so all them great leviathans is mysteries to me. But there's a tale the Bible tells I fully understand, about the time the patriarchs were settling on the land. Those patriarchs of olden time, when all is said and done, they lived the same as far-out men on many a Queensland run. A lot of roving, droving men who drifted to and fro, the same we did out Queensland way a score of years ago. Now Isaac was a squatter man, and Jacob was his son. And when the boy grew up, you see, he wearied of the run. You know the way that boys grow up. There's some that stick at home, but any boy that's worth his salt will roll his swag and roam. So Jacob caught the roving fit and took the drover's track to where his uncle had a run beyond the outer back. You see, they made for outback runs for room to stretch and grow, the same we did out Queensland way a score of years ago. Now, Jacob knew the ways of stock, that's most uncommon clear, for when he got to Laban's run, they made him overseer. He didn't ask £1 a week, but bargained for his pay, to take the roan and strawberry calves, the same we'd take today. The duns and blacks and Goulburn roans, that's brindles, coarse and hard, he branded them with Laban's brand in old man Laban's yard. So when he'd done the station work for close on 7 year, why, all the choicest stock belonged to Laban's overseer. It's often so with overseers. I've seen the same thing done by many a Queensland overseer on many a Queensland run. But when the mustering time came on, old Laban acted straight and gave him country of his own outside the boundary gate. He gave him stock and offered him his daughter's hand in troth. And Jacob, first he married one, and then he married both. You see they weren't particular about a wife or so. No more were we up Queensland way, a score of years ago. But when the stock was strong and fat with grass and lots of rain, then Jacob felt the call to take the homeward road again. It's strange, in every creed and clime, no matter where you roam, there comes a day when every man would like to make for home. So off he set with sheep and goats, a mighty moving band, to battle down the homeward track along the overland. It's droving mixed up mobs like that makes men cut their throats. I've travelled rams, which Lord forget, but never travelled goats. But Jacob knew the ways of stock, for, so the story goes, when battling through the Philistines, selectors, I suppose, he thought he'd have to fight his way, an awkward sort of job. So what did old man Jacob do? Of course, he split the mob. He sent the strong stock on ahead to battle out the way. He couldn't hurry lambing ewes, no more you could today. And down the road from run to run, his hand 'gainst every hand, he moved that mighty mob of stock across the overland. The thing is made so clear and plain, so solid in and out. There isn't any room at all for any kind of doubt. It's just a plain, straightforward tale, a tale that lets you know the way they lived in Palestine 3,000 years ago. It's strange to read it all today, the shifting of the stock. You'd think you see the caravans that loaf behind the flock, the little donkeys and the mules, the sheep that slowly spread, and maybe Dan or Naphtali are riding on ahead. The long, dry, dusty summer days, the smouldering fires at night, the stir and bustle of the camp at break of morning light, the little kids that skipped about, the camel's dead slow tramp. I wish I'd done a week or two in old man Jacob's camp. But if I keep the narrow path, some day perhaps I'll know how Jacob bred them strawberry calves 3,000 years ago. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Silence by John Gould Fletcher. Read for LibriVox.org by Winston Tharp. There is a silence which I carry about with me always, a silence perpetual, for it is self-created, a silence of heat, of water, of unchecked fruitfulness, through which each year the heavy harvests bloom and burst and fall. Deep, matted, green silence of my south. Often within the push and the scorn of great cities I have seen that mile-wide waste of water swaying out to you, and on its current glimmering I am going to the sea. There is a silence I have achieved. I have walked beyond its threshold. I know it is without horizons, boundless, fathomless, perfect. And some day, maybe, far away, I shall curl up in it at last, and to sleep, an endless sleep. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
A Sonnet of the Moon by Charles Best. Read for LibriVox.org by Jeri Erickson. Look how the pale queen of the silent night doth cause the ocean to attend upon her, and he, as long as she is in his sight, with her full tide is ready her to honor. But when the silver wagon of the moon is mounted up so high he cannot follow, the sea calls home his crystal waves to moan, and with low ebb doth manifest his sorrow. So you that are the sovereign of my heart, have all my joys attending on your will. my joys low ebbing when you do depart. When you return, their tide my heart doth fill. So as you come and as you do depart, joys ebb and flow within my tender heart. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Spacious Firmament on High by Joseph Addison. Read for LibriVox.org by Algy, Perth, Western Australia. The spacious firmament on high, with all the blue ethereal sky and spangled heavens, a shining frame, their great original proclaim. The unwearied sun, from day to day, does his Creator's powers display, and publishes to every land the work of an almighty hand. Soon as the evening shades prevail, the moon takes up the wondrous tale, and nightly to the listening earth repeats the story of her birth, while all the stars that round her burn, and all the planets in their turn, confirm the tidings as they roll, and spread the truth from pole to pole. What though in solemn silence all move round the dark terrestrial ball? What though no real voice or sound amid the radiant orbs be found? In reason's ear they all rejoice, and utter forth a glorious voice, for ever singing as they shine, the hand that made us is divine. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
To My Wife by Conrad Aiken. Read for LibriVox.org by Winston Tharp. Whatever loveliness is in this music, whatever yearning after lovely things, whatever crying after stars in darkness, whatever beating of impeded wings, whatever climbing of the rose to sunlight, sweet-hearted laugh from the dark blind sod, whatever madness of the sea for moonlight, whatever yearning of the good to God. All that is beautiful, and all that looks on beauty, with eyes filled with fire like a lover's eyes, all of this is yours. You gave it to me, sunlight. All these stars are yours. You gave them to me, skies. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.